In just hours on the front lines in Donetsk, Ukrainian armored forces wiped out a swarm of Russian vehicles, including at least one state-of-the-art T-90M tank worth a staggering $4.5 million. Ukraine used a deadly combo of M1 Abrams tanks, M2 Bradley fighting vehicles, and scouting drones. This isn't just another skirmish, it's a game-changer, with reports from the ground showing Ukraine's clever tactics turning the tide and racking up massive enemy losses, like the over 2,000 Russian tanks destroyed so far in 2025 alone, according to independent trackers. A cheap drone, spotting targets from above, guiding heavy firepower to smash through defenses in minutes. This clash marks a massive shift in tank warfare, moving from old-school battles of raw steel to a high-tech fight driven by data and lightning speed. Gone are the days of massive tank charges. Now it's about smart coordination that catches enemies off guard. But here's the high stakes. If Ukraine loses hold of Donetsk, Russia could punch through key supply lines linking to Zaporizhia, crumbling defenses and dealing a huge blow to NATO's strategies that rely on Western gear holding strong. The world could watch as Putin's forces gain ground, escalating tensions across Europe. On the flip side, if Ukraine pulls off this win, it sets a bold new standard for future wars, where Bradleys, Abrams, and drones aren't just weapons but a seamless killing network blending infantry, artillery, and air support into one unstoppable force. So, what makes a Bradley able to take down a Russian tank? What fire suppression systems save the crew of a hit Leopard 2? And in those critical seconds, what flipped control away from Russia in that fortified village? The M1, Abrams, and M2 Bradley vehicles led a bold push into Russian-held territory near Pokrovsk in Donetsk. This is where enemy troops dug in deep behind concrete walls and trenches, and Ukrainian scouts relied on drones to spot key positions before the assault began. Drones hovered high above the battlefield, sending real-time data on Russian movements straight to the tank commanders, and the Abrams rolled forward with its powerful engine roaring through the muddy fields. Crews inside adjusted their sights based on those feeds, locking onto fortified spots where Russian soldiers hid with machine guns and rocket launchers ready. The Bradley flanked the main path, its lighter frame allowing quicker turns around obstacles, while both vehicles moved in sync to avoid open exposure to anti-tank fire. Once within range, the Abrams turret swung toward a central building that served as the Russian command hub, and its 120mm cannon unleashed 2 rounds in quick succession, shattering the structure into rubble and dust clouds that blocked enemy views. Shrapnel flew everywhere as walls crumbled, trapping some defenders under debris, and the blast wave knocked nearby soldiers off their feet. Ukrainian forces watched from cover as the collapse cut off Russian coordination, forcing panicked shouts over radios that soon went silent. This precise strike turned the Abrams into a close-range artillery piece, blending heavy firepower with drone-guided accuracy to punch holes in defenses that once seemed unbreakable. At the same time, the Bradley positioned itself on the side flank, its 25mm Bushmaster chain gun spinning up to spray rounds at retreating Russian infantry who tried to flee through narrow alleys. Bullets tore through barriers and suppressed any attempts to regroup, pinning down groups that scattered toward trees or ditches for safety. The vehicle's speed helped it weave between ruined houses, keeping pressure on the enemy without getting stuck, and its armor shrugged off small arms hits that bounced harmlessly away. Russian troops fired back with rifles and grenades, but the Bradley's rapid bursts forced them to abandon positions, leaving gear behind in the chaos. This operation showcased a fresh approach in armored combat, where the Abrams acted like mobile artillery tied directly to aerial scouts, shifting away from slow, predictable advances that often led to heavy losses. Ukrainian teams exploited this setup to overwhelm static Russian lines, coordinating ground pushes with overhead intel that revealed hidden threats in real time. The result scattered enemy units across the village outskirts, with some surrendering amid the smoke and others pulling back under constant harassment. Commanders on the ground adapted quickly, using the Bradley's agility to cover withdrawal routes and prevent counterattacks from forming. As the dust settled, Ukrainian infantry moved in behind the vehicles to secure the area, clearing rooms where survivors might lurk and gathering intel from captured documents. The Abrams held a defensive stance at the edge, its gun barrels scanning for reinforcements that might approach from distant hills, while drones continued circling to warn of any buildup. This integrated tactic not only cleared the fortified zone, but also disrupted Russian supply paths nearby, weakening their hold on the sector. Soldiers on both sides felt the intensity of these moments, with Ukrainian crews relying on quick decisions to stay ahead, and the battlefield evolved into a space where technology amplified traditional armor strength. The push highlighted how combined arms could turn a tough standoff into a swift breakthrough, leaving Russian forces reeling from the unexpected coordination. 3 Bradley vehicles from the 47th Brigade launched the assault with thick smoke screens and rapid speeds to approach the village held by Russian troops. Clouds of gray mist billowed from the launchers on each machine, blocking enemy sights across the open fields, and the drivers pushed engines hard to reach 60 kilometers per hour over uneven ground. Ukrainian scouts had marked the path earlier, using maps from drone feeds, guiding the group around hidden ditches and wire barriers that could slow them down. Crews inside stayed alert through narrow viewports, scanning for flashes of movement amid the haze, while radios crackled with updates from overhead observers spotting Russian patrols. The lead Bradley weaved left to dodge a suspected mine spot, pulling the others in a tight formation that kept them shielded from side attacks. As they neared the outer houses, the 25mm Bushmaster guns opened up in steady bursts, sweeping across bunkers and firing posts to pin down defenders. Rounds punched through wooden barricades and thin metal sheets, sending sparks and debris flying, and Russian soldiers ducked behind stone walls to avoid the hail of bullets. This constant pressure cleared paths for Ukrainian foot troops following close behind, allowing them to dash forward without facing heavy return fire from windows or rooftops. One Bradley targeted a machine gun nest near a base, its cannon rattling off shells that silenced the weapon and forced the crew to scatter. Infantry squads used the cover to flank buildings, tossing grenades into doorways and securing rooms step by step, while the vehicles circled to block escape routes. During the pullback phase, the Bradleys maintained speeds between 40 and 50 kilometers per hour, twisting turrets backward to face potential pursuers and ready for instant countershots. Engines hummed as they reversed through narrow streets, kicking up dirt clouds that mixed with lingering smoke, and gunners kept eyes on shadows where Russian reinforcements might emerge. One machine paused briefly to lay down suppressive blasts at a group trying to regroup near a fence, buying time for the last soldiers to board transport trucks. The retreat stayed organized, with each Bradley covering the next in a leapfrog pattern that prevented ambushes from catching them off guard. Commanders directed the move via short commands, ensuring no unit strayed too far and risked isolation amid the confusion. This swift operation unfolded in just 4 minutes and 12 seconds, marking a high-speed clash that caught Russian forces unprepared. Defense Express reports highlighted the timing, showing how quick maneuvers overwhelmed static positions before artillery could respond. Ukrainian teams capitalized on the Bradley's blend of mobility and firepower, turning a risky advance into a controlled hit that disrupted enemy plans. Soldiers on the ground felt the rush of adrenaline during those brief moments, relying on practiced drills to navigate the dangers, and the vehicle's design proved vital in handling rough terrain without bogging down. The assault not only cleared key spots but also boosted morale among the brigade, proving that coordinated rushes could shift control in contested zones. Russian defenders, caught in the whirlwind, abandoned gear in their haste, leaving behind rifles and ammo crates that Ukrainian forces later collected. This tactic reshaped the engagement, emphasizing speed over prolonged standoffs, and set a pattern for future pushes in the region. The Bradleys returned to base with minor dents from stray hits, ready for the next call, while the village fell quiet under new control. A drone pinpointed a hidden Russian ammo storage beneath the village in Donetsk, relaying exact coordinates to waiting M777 howitzers that launched shells straight at the target and set off a huge explosion shaking the ground. Aerial scouts flew low over rooftops and trees, capturing clear views of the underground bunker stocked with crates of munitions, and operators on the ground punched in the data for precise aiming. The first round whistled through the air, slamming into the entrance with a thunderous boom that ignited secondary blasts inside, sending flames shooting up like a volcano and scattering debris across nearby fields. Smoke rose thick and black, obscuring the area as chain reactions ripped through the depot, forcing Russian guards to scramble for cover amid falling rubble. Ukrainian artillery crews adjusted their positions quickly, firing follow-up shots to ensure complete destruction, while the shockwave rattled windows in distant houses and alerted both sides to the sudden shift in control. Right after the initial strike, two Leopard 2 tanks surged forward from concealed spots behind a tree line, rumbling across open terrain to capitalize on the chaos and press the advantage. Tracks churned up soil as they advanced in tandem, cannons ready to engage any remaining threats, and commanders inside monitored radio chatter for enemy responses. One vehicle drew fire from a hidden Russian gun emplacement, taking a direct hit that sparked flames along its hull. But the built-in suppression system kicked in automatically with bursts of foam to smother the blaze. Crew members felt the heat rise inside the cabin, yet they stayed calm and reversed gear smoothly, pulling back to safety without abandoning the machine or suffering injuries. This quick escape highlighted the tank's robust design, allowing operators to regroup fast and avoid turning a setback into total loss. Meanwhile, the second Leopard locked onto a nearby Russian command post, its 120mm gun-firing APF-SDS rounds that pierced thick barriers and demolished the structure in a flurry of concrete shards. The projectile streaked forward at high velocity, striking the roof and collapsing the entire building inward, burying equipment and disrupting communications that left enemy units leaderless. Flames licked at exposed wiring as the post crumpled, cutting off orders to nearby troops who began retreating in disorder. Ukrainian forces pushed ahead behind the tank, securing the ruined site and discovering vast stockpiles of unused shells scattered amid the wreckage. Later sweeps revealed over 40 tons of artillery rounds left intact, providing a major boost to resupply efforts and weakening Russian firepower in the sector. This sequence demonstrated that Western tank systems offer not just strong offensive capabilities, but also superior chances for crews to survive hits, creating a clear edge over opponents in intense fights. Ukrainian teams leveraged this resilience to maintain momentum, turning defensive lapses into opportunities for deeper gains. Soldiers on the scene coordinated seamlessly, with artillery paving the way for armored advances that exploited enemy confusion. The operation unfolded amid dust and echoes of detonations, testing nerves but rewarding bold moves with territorial wins. Russian positions, once fortified with heavy gear, crumbled under the combined pressure, forcing a hasty withdrawal that exposed flanks for further strikes. Commanders reviewed the action afterward, noting how timely fire control saved lives and kept vehicles operational. The battlefield transformed rapidly, from a quiet standoff to a zone of Ukrainian dominance, underscoring the value of integrated weapons in modern conflicts. Troops felt a surge of confidence, knowing their tools could withstand punishment and deliver decisive blows. A Bradley fighting vehicle set up an ambush in a rundown neighborhood near Avdiivka, hiding in an abandoned building while a Russian tank, pounded Ukrainian positions with heavy cannon fire from a nearby street. Shadows from crumbling walls concealed the machine as its crew waited patiently. Engines idled low to avoid detection, and scouts monitored the enemy's approach through cracked windows. The Russian armor rumbled into view, its turrets swiveling to unleash rounds that chipped away at Ukrainian defenses, pinning down soldiers in trenches and forcing them to hug the ground amid exploding dirt. Ukrainian infantry radioed for support, their voices tense over the noise of impacts, but the Bradley held position, calculating the perfect moment to strike without revealing itself too soon. Dust settled from each blast, creating brief lulls where the tank adjusted aim, and the waiting crew felt the vibration of distant artillery adding to the tension. When the Russian tank shifted to reposition and exposed its side, the Bradley gunner locked on and fired a burst into the weak armor plating, triggering a chain reaction that blew the turret skyward in a fiery eruption. Shells from the 25mm cannon pierced the hull at close range, igniting stored ammunition inside, and flames burst out from seams as the vehicle shuddered violently. Metal fragments scattered across the pavement, clanging against nearby ruins, and the explosion's roar drowned out screams from the enemy crew, scrambling to escape the inferno. Smoke poured from the wreckage, obscuring the road and halting any immediate backup from rolling in, while the Bradley's driver edged forward slightly to confirm the hit. This precise flank attack exploited the tank's vulnerability, turning a dominant suppressor into a burning husk that no longer threatened the trapped units. Right after the strike, Ukrainian infantry squads emerged from their pinned spots in the village, dashing toward safety under the Bradley's protective watch as it covered their retreat with short bursts at lingering threats. Soldiers grabbed wounded comrades from exposed ditches, hauling them across open yards while the vehicle rolled alongside, its tracks crunching over debris to shield the group from stray gunfire. Radios buzzed with coordination calls, directing the men to rally points behind stronger barriers, and the Bradley's presence boosted their speed, preventing panic amid the chaos of smoldering ruins. One squad leader signaled thanks with a quick wave before vanishing into an alley, allowing the machine to pivot and scan for counter-moves from Russian reinforcements lurking on the outskirts. This timely rescue transformed a desperate holdout into an organized pullback, saving lives that might otherwise have been lost to sustained bombardment. Drone footage captured the entire sequence, revealing how the Bradley covered just 300 meters over 6 minutes, yet flipped the local balance from Russian control to Ukrainian recovery. Cameras from above showed the vehicle maneuvering through tight spaces with agile turns, avoiding obstacles like fallen beams and potholes, while its guns stayed active to deter pursuits. The recording highlighted split-second choices that kept the ambush effective, from initial concealment to the final withdrawal, and Ukrainian commanders used it later to refine similar operations. Troops on the ground recounted the relief of hearing the Bradley's approach, knowing it meant escape from the kill zone, and the action underscored how mobile firepower could disrupt heavier foes in urban settings. Russian forces, stunned by the loss, hesitated in their advance, giving Ukrainian lines time to reinforce and hold the sector firm. FPV drones rushed straight at gaps in the armor, ammo-loading doors or turrets of Russia's advanced T-90M Prorv tanks near Chasiv Yar in Donetsk, triggering massive blasts from stored munitions inside the hull. Pilots guided these small machines from safe distances using video feeds, weaving through trees and low hills to approach undetected, and the devices accelerated to slam into vulnerable spots with explosive payloads. One strike pierced a side panel on a moving T-90M, igniting fuel lines that spread fire rapidly through compartments, and the vehicle ground to a halt amid thick smoke rising from cracked seams. Russian crews tried to bail out as hatches popped open, but the inferno engulfed the interior before they could fully escape, leaving the tank a smoking shell on the roadside. Ukrainian operators cheered over communications as the feed showed the destruction, confirming the hit and scanning for secondary targets in the convoy. In some cases, drones hit vehicles 3 times in a row, starting with the engine to stop movement, then the cabin to disrupt controls, and finally the turret to set off a full fireball. The first impact shook the T-90M's frame near the rear, cutting power and forcing it to swerve off the path into soft dirt, and pilots circled back for the next pass amid dodging anti-drone fire from nearby infantry. The second strike targeted internal spaces through a weak joint, sparking electrical shorts that jammed systems, and the machine lurched forward weakly before halting completely. The third blow landed on the gun mount, detonating rounds in a chain reaction that lifted the top section high into the air, scattering debris across fields and creating craters from falling parts. Russian support units hesitated to approach the blazing wreck, fearing more aerial threats, while Ukrainian ground teams advanced under the cover of the distraction. A Russian tank rolled into a minefield during an advance push, hitting an explosive device that set off ammo stored under the floor in the classic T-series layout, which places shells close to the crew for quick loading but heightens risks in hits. The vehicle bounced slightly as the front track triggered the buried charge, sending a shockwave upward through the chassis, and flames erupted from vents as the detonation cooked off rounds in rapid succession. The hull exploded from the pressure, hurling fragments toward accompanying troops who dove for cover, and the turret spun wildly before settling askew amid the growing fire. Crew members ejected partially, some injured by the blast wave that rattled their bones, but the machine became unusable in seconds, blocking the route for followers. Ukrainian defenders watched from distant positions, adjusting mine placements based on scout reports to maximize such traps. Modern battlefields assign tanks major roles in assaults and defenses, yet they face high vulnerabilities from compact, swift, data-driven tactics that exploit design flaws. Ukrainian forces integrate these methods to counter heavier armor, turning open terrain into deadly zones where speed trumps size. Soldiers adapt on the fly, using real-time intel to guide strikes that keep enemies reactive rather than proactive. The clashes reveal how low-cost tools can neutralize expensive hardware, shifting power dynamics in contested areas. Research from FOI Memo 8897 estimates that FPV drones account for about 65% of Russian tank losses up to early 2025. From Donetsk to Zaporizhia, one truth is now impossible to ignore. The age of steel is giving way to the age of speed. Abrams, Bradleys, and drones have turned Ukraine's armored forces into a living network where data flows faster than shells, and seconds decide what survives. Tanks are no longer just weapons of power. They are sensors, shields, and strike nodes inside a real-time kill chain that can change a front line in minutes. But this transformation comes with a warning. Russia is adapting fast, building drone defense grids, upgrading armor resilience, and layering electronic jammers to blind incoming strikes. Every new advantage Ukraine builds invites a countermeasure, and the battlefield is shifting into a race of algorithms and reaction time. The real question now is whether Ukraine's short kill chain strategy can permanently rewrite the rules of modern warfare, or if it's just a brief edge before Moscow adjusts and hits back harder. Will future victories belong to those who think faster, or those who strike heavier? Tell us what you believe: speed and precision, or mass and firepower? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Military Force for clear maps, straight numbers, and the next major update from the front.